Okay, we will be starting soon. Uh, Scotty 2 Hockey may or may not join. Looks like he's a little bit late. Uh, Alright, why don't we get things kicked off? It is Sunday, February 16th, 2020. My name is Matt. We're going to be talking about Gallagher, getting into it with the refs. Who's right? Is Gallagher right? Are the referees right? Spoiler alert, Gallagher is right. We're also going to be talking a little bit about Nick Suzuki, a little bit more about Jake Evans. All of that and more coming up next on the Habsnation Podcast. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Matt. Welcome to the Sin Bin. I've just been pumping out content all week, sort of exhausted, so I'm glad I get the opportunity to talk with Habs fans, two Habs fans from a Habs fan, about our favorite hockey team. And our hockey team isn't doing too well, nowadays. Now, I like to start every episode looking at the NHL standings just to see where the Canadiens position themselves, if they still have a chance of making it to the playoffs. Second spoiler alert of the episode, no, they don't. But in case you guys didn't see it, here we go. In case you guys didn't see it, here are the standings in the NHL. So Washington, they lead the Metropolitan, but we're more interested in the Atlantic, right? The Atlantic is ruled by Boston. Tampa Bay is not too far behind. And if you go all the way down, sixth out of a playoff position, we have the Montreal Canadiens. Now, let me see if we can see a league. All right. This is the league standings. Montreal is all the way down to 22nd. So say if the draft started today, they're going to be drafting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I had to count because I suck at math. They are going to be drafting 10th. But watch out. The Minnesota Wild, they're only a point behind, and they have 3 games in hand. So technically, they only need to go into overtime, and they're going to tie the Canadiens. Buffalo, they're 2 points behind, and they also have 3 games in hand. Same thing for the Chicago Blackhawks. The San Jose Sharks are a little bit further back, but they also have 3 games in hand. So it's looking kind of bleak for the Montreal Canadiens. That's the word I'm looking for. Shazam is in the chat. How are you, Shazam? He says Gallagher is right, of course. We will finish too high. Yeah, now, the reason why I bring it up, the standings and everything, is because at this point in the season, I'm not going to lie, I want to see the Canadiens lose. Oh, what kind of fan are you? You want to see them lose? What type of fan? Listen, I'm a fan that's looking towards the future. Do you want to win a few meaningless games in a meaningless season? Or do you want to get the highest draft pick possible? Now, we're not going to sniff Lafreniere unless we get really, really lucky at the draft lottery. But in case you guys missed it, Alexis Lafreniere actually got a career high in points. Let me see if I can pull it out. Yeah, so Alexis Lafreniere actually got a 7-point night, as you guys can see here. I'm kind of reluctant to play the video. I don't want to get a copyright claim, but they're not going to sniff Lafreniere. Unless we get good at the lottery, but why not get the highest draft pick available? Why not? Shazam says if you make the playoffs, I'm assuming he meant if you don't make the playoffs, might as well finish last. Yeah. They need to excel. Whether they win, whether they lose, they have to be the best at it. If you lose, you need to be at the bottom because your team is never going to improve. In the NHL, if you look at the teams that are never good, it's the ones that are stuck in the middle. Teams like the Islanders. You see, the Islanders are a team that, for me, they never draft in like the top 5, at least in recent memory. I don't remember them drafting in like the top 5. They always draft at like 9, 10, 11, 12. And they always seem to be like a bubble team, or they might make it a few years, win a round or 2, but that's all they're going to sniff. Teams that are in the middle have a hard time getting out of the middle. So that's what I think about it. If you guys have any viewer questions, please feel free to write it in the chat, and like with Shazam, I'll be answering it right off. Or if you guys like to talk, you're more verbal, like I am, you guys can join the Discord. I think or no, I may have put a link in the description. You can follow it, and what it looks like is that it looks like this, and you were to follow it, go into the waiting room, and then I would bring you onto the podcast and we could chat voice to voice. Now, like I teased before, we're going to talk a little bit about Brendan Gallagher, but first, let me answer Leaky Bum's question. He says they took Griffin Reinhart with one of their top 5 picks. Yeah, but that was a while ago. They haven't been consistently like. Look, if you want to rebuild properly, you have to consistently draft in the top 5 for many years. A good example is the Maple Leafs, and I know maybe it's not the best example because lately they haven't been playing their best hockey, but the Maple Leafs, there's the 1 year they draft Matthews. The next year, they draft Marner. They got Tavares, who it was lucky, but he's a number 1 overall pick. You know, those are a lot of draft picks in the top 5. Yes, Griffin Reinhart was a top 5 pick, but if you look at all of the other ones the Islanders get, it's not those game changers you can get in the top 5, maybe even top 3. They got Wallstrom. He's a great player, not a game changer. They got Noah Dobson. I went to the same high school as him. Yeah, I have tremendous respect for him. I don't believe he's a game changer. He's a very solid, stable top 4 defenseman with an immense size. Who else did they get? Barzal was a late pick, but that was a steal in 2015. You know, the Islanders are one of those teams I feel like they're always in the middle and they never improve. You guys want another example? The Minnesota Wild. The Minnesota Wild is one of those teams who they're never first and they're never last. My whole life watching hockey, the Minnesota Wild has always been in the middle. And once you're in the middle, you can't get out of the middle. It's like herpes. Once you get it, you're stuck with it for life. Once you're in the middle in hockey, you can't get out of it. Add the Canadians to that list. You know, Shazam also says Dakoli, or sorry, Leaky Bum says Dalcoli. And you know what? Both Griffin Reinhart and Dalcoli were some of the hugest busts in recent NHL. Keep firing away those comments. I'm loving them. I'm going to talk a little bit about Gallagher. If you guys don't know this website, it's called Habs Eyes on the Prize. Very good website if you like the Canadians. If you guys want to see what it looks like, this is their home screen. Lots of articles analyzing rookies, Nick Suzuki, Jake Evans, a lot of game reviews, so on and so forth. But I wanted to talk about this specific article where they're referring to the Gallagher incident that happened yesterday. Now, I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch a lot of yesterday's game between the Montreal Canadiens and the Dallas Stars. I got a little bit busy, but I did watch the highlights, and I do have strong opinions about it. In case you guys didn't see it, I have a few clips to show you. So basically what happened is that the Canadiens had a 3-0 lead, okay? They dropped the lead, and there was a few questionable calls. I think in the first or second period, Armia took a hooking call on, I think it was Sekera, a defenseman for the Dallas Stars. I thought that was a tremendously weak call. I mean, the referees, they should be ashamed on that one. If you call that a penalty, because if you look at Armia, one hand on the stick, barely even touching, again, I forget who it was, Sekera, and he went down like a sack of potatoes. Now, in overtime, and actually, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So, Max Domi in overtime, he's on the forecheck, and then this happens. Blatant high stick to the face. Referee is looking at it. Look, you see him right there. He is looking right at the play, and there's another referee who's out of the frame, but he's right next to Domi here. No penalty. For me, like I said, at this point, I want to see the Canadians lose, but I do gotta say, it sucks to see this type of officiating in the National Hockey League. The National Hockey League is the creme de la creme. It's the highest league you can get in hockey. All right? The officiating needs to be better. I know this is less so Canadians news, but it does relate to this game overall. I made a video about Evander Kane. The video's doing great, by the way. The tweet he put out about the NHL's officiating. And if I were to echo some of his sentiments, they're not consistent. We don't know what's a penalty and what's not a penalty anymore. I mean, I'm going to admit it. Actually, let me pull up the clip here so I can put it into perspective. So later in the overtime, Armia has the puck,
Canadians,
and
here comes Armia.
he brings it out. And I will admit, it was a hook, but I will admit Armia did go easily down. He did go down very easily. I will have to say it's a bit of a dive. I'm just trying not to be biased here. But with that being said, what's the difference between that play that Armia did and the play that Sakara did? It's the exact same thing. Both players barely hooked him. The player went down. The only difference that one player got the penalty and the other one didn't. So going back to that Evander Kane situation, the refs aren't, they're not consistent. They're not consistent, and that's the worst thing you can do in the NHL today. The lack of consistency. It makes me nauseous. Let's see if Scotty Two Hockey's here. I was supposed to do a show with him, but I don't know, maybe he forgot. So that's pretty much what I had to say. Now, the article, if I were to read a little bit about it, they say Garrett Rank and Dean Morton, who are the two chicken head referees that were in charge of yesterday's game, well, they put forth one of the worst displays of officiating for the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal against the Dallas Stars on Saturday. The latter more so than the former, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Oh man, this is getting a little bit juicy. Whenever a team blows a 3-goal lead, they have to wear most of the blames themselves. The fact that they sat on their lead is on them, but the officials need to be held accountable for their horrendous and blatantly onside performance. And I echo totally the sentiments. Look, it's their fault they lost. In the end, is it the referee's fault that Marco Scandella coughed up the puck? I mean, that's a rookie mistake. They tell you don't play the puck down the middle. If you're going to get rid of it, go along the boards. He throws it out there in the middle. That's a rookie mistake. Is it the referee's fault? No, it's not. Before I move on, Alvin, who was here, he says Zucker gave Minnesota a first-round pick, a prospect, and third, fourth liners. What do you think Tatar's value would be? Well, I'll tell you this. It's that and more. Because, in my opinion, Tatar, the type of season he's having, and the type of player he is, he would be able to get you more than Jason Zucker. So Tatar alone, he'll give you a very good prospect because I consider Addison to be a B plus to A prospect. I saw him at the World Juniors. I loved him. He can give you a first round pick, and then he can give you a bottom six player, but a younger bottom six player, and that's at the very minimum. Okay? For Thomas Tatar, say if I were trading him to, I'm trying to think here. I'm going to name a team, and it's just a random team. That's not going to happen. I'm not starting any rumors. I'm just giving it for the sake of an example. Say he's to be traded to the Carolina Hurricanes. For the type of season he's having, I don't know why they won't be able to get a first round pick, a really good defensive prospect, say like maybe Jake Bean, and then a very good A forward, like that Ito Luutinen. Okay? And maybe you can throw in another second round pick. Remember, when Tatar got traded to the Vegas Golden Knights, he wasn't having half the season he was having this year. This year, he's going to put up records numbers in terms of his own personal record. And that year he got traded to the Vegas Golden Knights, he yielded a first, a second, and a third round pick. So imagine what he can yield with the type of season he's having. And on top, I don't know if Zucker had an extra year on his deal, but Tatar does. So that can give you a little bit more. Again, if he were to be traded to the Carolina Hurricanes and they're not interested in him, I'm just throwing them out there to give you an example what the return would yield. I don't know why a guy like Jake Bean, very solid prospect, a first round pick, and Ito Luutinen, another very solid prospect, and maybe even like a third round pick, I don't know why that's not out of the realm of possibilities. So, good question. I think Tatar's value is a lot. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side you swing, I don't think Bergevin's interested in giving him up. I do not think he's interested in giving him up. So if you plan on seeing Tatar getting traded, you can forget about it because I don't think that he's interested in giving him up. All right. Moving on though. Leaky Bum says, I wouldn't want Petrie to be traded, but what do you consider his value at? Petrie, similar to what you could get for a guy like Tatar. He's not having the greatest of seasons. Okay. He's not the most defensively reliable, and I'm the biggest Jeff Petrie fan. But I will say sometimes he does commit boneheaded mistakes. But I will tell you this. Jeff Petrie is an A-plus skater. He is the most agile skater on the Montreal Canadiens. He's a right-handed defenseman. The league, the marketplace for a great skating, right-handed defenseman who can pinch in offensively, who has a bomb of a shot, there's a good market for it. So if I were to place his value, for example, if I were to, similar exercise to what I did with Tatar, if I were to trade Jeff Petrie to, I don't know, say the Los Angeles Kings. Again, this won't happen, but I don't understand why it won't yield a second round pick because remember, they're going to be drafting very low, but a second round pick is a lot of value. Maybe a guy like Jared Anderson-Dolan, who, if you guys remember, the Canadiens wanted to get him for Pacioretty. Okay, that deal didn't go through. I don't know if Pacioretty put his no movement clause or something like that, but that was an early rumor. He ended up getting traded for Nick Suzuki and Thomas Tatar. But say if Jeff Petrie tomorrow was to be traded to the Los Angeles Kings, which is not going to happen. They're not looking for a defenseman, but I'm just giving you guys an idea of his value. A second round pick, Anderson-Dolan, who's a great prospect. He plays center, which that adds to his value. And their second round pick, it's more like a low first round pick. So maybe throw in maybe a fourth or a fifth or something like that. But that's what I think Jeff Petrie's value is. Alvin was here, says, if Weber retires, sign Barry. Whew. Listen, I would be very careful signing Barry for two reasons. First reason is the type of season he's having. Yes, he's turned it around recently, but his season isn't blowing my socks off. Furthermore, he's not reliable defensively, which brings me to my second point. Barry and Weber, yeah, they both shoot right, but they could not be further apart in terms of the style of play they have. One is like a stay-at-home defenseman who he puts defense before offense while still having some degree of offense. He'll block shots, he'll get in dirty, he'll hit, he'll do anything, he'll fight. Tyson Barrie, he's more of like a Jeff Petrie type, but more offensive, and he'll commit more errors. I'm sure you guys all saw the game that they recently played against the Canadiens where it went to overtime and Kovalchuk scored the game winner. I believe the game winner by Kovalchuk, that was off a horrible play by Tyson Barrie. And it's not like a one and done type of situation. He does it on a regular basis. I don't know how much of a fan Marc Bergevin is of Tyson Barrie, a guy who will make a lot of mistakes like that. But then again, they were in talks to get Jake Gardiner, so I don't know. Keep firing your questions. Very good questions, guys. Alvin, Lee, all of you guys. I'm going to keep reading this article because I got to admit, I didn't read it all and I find it very interesting. Only 2 penalties were called during regulation, both in the second period, and both against the Habs. Wow, I actually did not know that. The Habs did not get a power play? Ben Sherratt was definitely guilty of a slash, but interestingly enough, it was his reaction to being tripped, and the refs apparently saw only his retaliation. Joel Armia was guilty of a hook, which I'd argue was a little bit soft, but by the letter of the law, it was relatively fair. That call actually burned the Habs as well, since Tyler Seguin would cut the deficit to just 1 during the ensuing power play. Now, that's when Max Domi later took a high stick in overtime. I explained that. Domi's lip was bleeding in his post-scrum play. That's a 4-minute power play for the Habs, but the refs didn't manage to catch it. It is possible they just didn't see it, which I think is bullshit because there was two referees surrounding them. But since they were in the area of the puck, the refs would have had to be out of position to not be able to see it. At any rate, the truly unforgivable call of the night was the no call in overtime for the exact scene Armia sat in for the second. It was almost identical to what Armia himself sat for. So why is it all of a sudden tolerable in overtime? It isn't normal for officiating to be a little bit different from game to game, but this crew could not come even closer to adhering to the standards they set themselves in overtime. It's a common trend this year also, as the Habs are definitely not the only team to have fallen victim to brutal inconsistency. TVA Sport, they put out a video of the referee Dean Morton. He was audibly yelling at Gallagher, "Fuck you." He's telling him that, and he was like pointing. I guess he was pointing to the bench, like, "Get back to the locker room. You guys lost. Go fuck yourself." The referees suck. There's no other way of cutting it. There's no two ifs and buts about it. The referees suck. And you guys can make the argument, "Oh, the league, it's a fast sport. It's hard for the referees to catch up." I don't give a shit. Listen, if it's a fast sport, get some fast referees that can keep up with it. It's ridiculous. Again, let me reiterate myself for people who are just joining in right now. The penalty that Armia took on the Dallas Stars player, the hooking penalty, that was a dive. But the referees decided to call it a penalty. Now, in overtime, when the Dallas Stars player hooked, of all people, Joel Armia, did I think he went down softly? Sure. Maybe he assisted himself a little bit. But why are you going to call one side where the guy went down just as easily and not the other guy? Is it because it's overtime? Which, like the article describes, very good article I might add, that's not a good excuse. This is exactly the Evander Kane situation. I mean, things that he does, it gets suspended. And then if you go back in the annals of the NHL and you look at other highlights where people are elbowing other players, they get away scot-free. I want answers. Fuck. You know what? I love George Peros. He actually played for the Montreal Canadiens. I'm sure a lot of you are recalling that. I love him. I loved him as a player. Being an enforcer is not an easy job in this league. But I gotta say, as the head of the NHL Player Safety Department, you are sucking asshole, my friend. You are sucking major asshole. There is nothing I hate more than injustice. And you are the living proof of injustice. Let's look at the comments. Shazam says, will Bergevin make a trade? If he were to make the trades, it would be for people who are on one-year contracts. I don't have the list up right now. Maybe you guys can help me out, but I believe Thompson is on a one-year, last year of their contract. That's what I meant. Cousins might be on the last year of his contract. Guys like that who are on the last year of their contract, then yeah, I think Bergevin will make deals. For Tatar, for Jeff Petrie, I believe that there has been some calls for those two aforementioned players. Unless it's a ridiculously good return, okay? Unless it's something that's great, I don't see Marc Bergevin doing it. I mean, they really have to blow the water because I really do think Marc Bergevin loves Thomas Tatar. I really do think Marc Bergevin loves just Petrie. He's not going to give them us unless the offer, it's an offer he can't refuse. I'm sure you guys all saw The Godfather. I'm going to make him an offer I can't refuse. Unless someone comes to Marc Bergevin and makes him an offer he can't refuse, we're not going to see Tatar get traded. We're not going to see Jeff Petrie get traded. And part of why I think that is because I think Marc Bergevin, first of all, I think he has it in his bird brain that they can still make the playoffs. It's all but mathematically conclusive. The Canadiens are not going to make the playoffs. But second of all, I think that in his bird brain, he thinks that next year he has a shot of like completely turning it around, which in his defense, maybe, who knows, Maybe after this year ends, they draft whoever they draft. Hopefully, he'll go back to junior. Maybe the season after, they're going to turn things around, which in that case, they might need Tatar. They might need Jeff Petrie. So I'm going to give him a little bit more credit for that. But the guys with the last year left on their deals, I think it's all but said that they're going to get traded. At least if they don't get traded, I'll think something's wrong with Marc Bergevin. Did you like that little French accent I put there? Bergevin. Lee, or actually Shazam, says, why can't they use replay for the high sticks or other penalties that they let the light blind me? I was thinking the same thing earlier today. Why is it when it comes to like goalie interference, when it comes to stuff like that, they're allowed to look at the replay and reverse their call? Why can't it be the same with penalties? Like, you think it's a hook, you call it a hook, quickly go to the video, get maybe a better look at it, and then discern a call. Why can't it be like that? I mean, I guess the argument against it was that it's going to make the games longer. But come on. To see the thing on the iPad and to make a call, it's going to add 30 seconds. And it's going to save me a lot of anxiety and hemorrhoids. So I think that it should be a thing. That's a good point, Shazam. Alvin was here, says, do you think Cole Caulfield should do another year in Wisconsin or go straight to Laval? It's a good question. For me, personally, I would say Laval. Because for one reason. Right now, he's shredding Wisconsin. He's absolutely tearing it apart, the NCAA. Once you get to a level where you're that good in the league you're playing, your learning curve sort of plateaus. Like, imagine you guys. I don't know if you guys played hockey, but imagine I play against 6-year-olds and I'm just dangling out there and I'm just ripping it. Yeah, I look like Wayne Gretzky, but am I really learning? No, because the opposition isn't adequate. Once he goes to Laval, that's when the opposition is going to be more akin to the NHL. The opposition is better than in the college hockey. That's a fact. That's a fact. You have borderline NHL players in the AHL. So, if you're asking me, I would preferably like to see him in Laval. The only little caveat here for me is that I'm quickly starting to lose faith in Joel Bouchard. I don't know about you guys, but he's been here for 3 years already. He hasn't been able to do anything in his first 2 years. And they're on the cusp of missing the playoffs again this year. So I don't know if Joel Bouchard is the guy to do it. I'm going to need a lot of convincing. I think you guys have realized it by now. I'm a guy who likes results. I like to see wins. I like to see results. I don't care how you guys do it. I don't care who's the players. I don't care who's the coach. I want fucking results. I don't know where that came from. Shazam says, Alvin was here. Not points in yesterday's game. I don't know what that was about. Alvin was here says, if they can trade Delorier for a pick, they can trade our pending UFAs. Nick Delorier is a guy that I always liked on the Canadiens. The season where they gave him the contract, that was the season I think they drafted Kokanyemi. He actually wasn't bad, and which, by the way, is why they gave him a contract. Though when I see him play with Anaheim, and I don't get to watch much Anaheim, but the games that I have seen, he's just an energy player, and he drops the gloves. I'm pretty sure he leads the league. He leads the league in fights. Oh boy, what a tongue twister. They don't want to sell off the players. Then people won't go to the games. By signaling a rebuild, it will only scare people away from the games. And that's another good point. I am quickly losing faith in Mike Molson. Because Jeff Molson, I don't know what his plan is. Is his plan to sell tickets, to gain capital, to sell beers, or is his plan to win? I can't get into his thick skull, so obviously I can't tell. But I am very scared that the Canadians, their sole purpose, it's not thinking for the future. It's thinking of the immediate now, and it's thinking of selling tickets. It's thinking of selling tickets. Why is it? Think about it. The Rangers were a bottom-dwelling team, similarly to the Canadians, actually. They put out a letter to all of their season ticket holders. They put out a letter to all of their fans. A beautifully crafted letter where they said, we're going to suck. Okay? We're not going to win much games. But we're doing it for the future. We're doing it to rebuild. Why is it the Canadians can't do that? Well, if I'm to answer my own question, money. I think it's got something to do with money. If the Canadians were to come out tomorrow and Mark Bergevin, with his little hair, he comes up, he says, I think the Canadians, we should rebuild. We should start fresh. We should sell Carey Price. We should say, no, if he were to say that, people would stop watching the games. And he doesn't want that to happen. And he's probably getting that from Jeff Molson. He doesn't want that to happen either. That's why they don't have the balls to do a rebuild. Because this fucking team, I love them to death. But this fucking team, I have a feeling they're thinking more about selling tickets than actually winning games. Please. I mean, watching hockey, it shouldn't make you nauseous. Many a times when I watch the Canadians this year, I get nauseous. It's a horrible sight to see. At least if they were losing, at least I would say, oh, well, they're rebuilding. It's a normal process, but they're not rebuilding. So watching the losses, it just brings me down. It gives me diarrhea. They have no mission. It's not giving me a reason to watch games, guys. So this is how we answer back. 6 people listening in the chat. Not bad, by the way, but this is how we answer back. Don't go to the games. Don't buy tickets. Don't buy overpriced diluted beer that tastes like piss. Yes, I called you out, Molson. The only beer I drink nowadays is IPA. I don't know why I have such a craving for IPA all of a sudden. India Pale Ale. It's like normal beer, but it's lighter in color. It's also a little bit more bitter, a little bit more fruity. If you like grapefruit, you would like it. But this isn't beer talk. This is Habs talk. And I don't like the way the Canadians are going. I don't like it one bit. Some might argue, and I'm not like a conspiracy theory guy or anything. When Kotkaniemi first laced it up for the Montreal Canadiens, when he made it out of training camp as an 18-year-old, he wasn't just an 18-year-old. He was the youngest player in all of the 4 major sports in North America, be it hockey, football, baseball, and basketball. He was the youngest player. What made you think? What made the Canadians think he was able to survive such a huge NHL workload? I am starting to fear it's for marketing reasons that they did it. Where they said, look, our team was a bottom dweller last year. We need to get some freshness in the lineup. We need some fresh new face. We'll sell it as the future. Come watch the future. And we get Kotkaniemi in the lineup. With all due respect, I think he's a great player. I don't like that decision. And if they did it because they thought it was better for his development path, that's another story. But I have a feeling they did it for marketing reasons. Because if you guys recall, they finished 3rd or 4th to last in the NHL. No one had a reason to go watch the games. Myself included. I'm afraid that they decided to put Kotkaniemi in the starting lineup as a marketing ploy. You guys come see the games. You guys come buy our beer, buy our hot dogs, buy our Haagen-Dazs ice cream, and you get to see the Finnish sensation himself. The Canadians' future is in the lineup. He's the next Bellevue. It's frustrating, guys. It's absolutely frustrating. Oh, Shazam says he meant Caulfield had no points in yesterday's game. He also says, I always wonder why Molson almost gave away the Habs to Gillette just to buy the Habs back at a hefty price. I don't know, man. I absolutely don't know. I don't know what goes on behind closed doors. So even like with the Kotkaniemi thing, don't think I'm saying this out of something I heard or information. No, I'm just speculating here. I'm just speculating here. But I'm starting to quickly lose trust in Jeff Molson. First of all, do you guys see those videos he puts out on the Canadiens network? Where it's, I think it's called Talk to the GM or Ask the GM or Ask the Boss or Ask the Owner, something like that. And he answers fan questions. Did he answer my question once? No. I'm as big a fan as anyone. And he be giving out free jerseys. Where the fuck's my free jersey, beer boy? I mean, I've been busting my ass off watching every game, doing podcasts. Why give jerseys to like a Joe Blow? It reminds me of like hockey players at games. You know how in warm-ups they'll flip the puck up at cute kids? I'm not a cute kid. My chance to get a puck, it's long gone. Fuck, even when I was a kid, I wasn't cute, so I didn't have a chance then. Bouchard is the man for the job. If you think about it, Alvin was here says, when he was hired by Montreal, got no prospects that was ready to play in the AHL. Just last year is when Laval got legit prospects. Good point. That's a point well taken, Alvin was here. I guess I was a little too harsh on him. I like to see results. But if they don't make the playoffs this year, they have no excuse, Alvin was here. Because they got Paling, who's a great prospect. They now have Kotkaniemi. They have Hudon, which was Hudon in the AHL last year. I think he was bouncing back and forth. They got guys like Leskinen, who's looking like a stud. They got guys like Evans, who up till recently was playing with the Laval Rocket. If they miss the playoffs, I'm going to be a little bit more harsh than you. Because they have the key pieces. How many first rounders do they have on that team? Come on. Alvin was here says, and next year Laval may get Romanov, Ikonen, Ylonen, Caulfield, etc. Laval is just getting better in my opinion. That's true. That's true. Ikonen, if you guys recall, this is Ikonen's story. He was drafted in the 2017 NHL draft. 2017 NHL draft is actually a very, very interesting draft because I remember when it first happened and it was televised, everyone was saying how bad of a draft it was, how it lacked depth. They said there was no superstars in that draft. Now, if you were to direct your attention to the screen where I have the draft, if you look at guys, forget the top two, okay? If you look at guys like Miro Heiskanen, Kale McCarr, Elias Pettersson, Cody Glass maybe in the future, Nick Suzuki maybe in the future. I mean, I look at that and I sort of think that the experts were wrong, which goes back to the thought that it's hard to project where players will end up. But the reason why I bring up this draft is because, as you guys very well recall, the Montreal Canadiens decided to draft Ryan Paling, 25th overall. He was playing for St. Cloud State. And second round, who did the Canadiens decide to take? Who did the Canadiens decide to take? Where is he? Oh, God fucking damn it. Where is he? Ikonen. There we go. 58th overall. The Canadiens decided to take Joni Ikonen. Now, the reason why I bring him up is because in that draft, I heard people say Ikonen, who was the second round pick of the Montreal Canadiens, he's going to end up being better than Ryan Paling. And I remember hearing that and I was like, wow, this kid must be incredible. And they said, Paling, he's more of a safe pick, but Ikonen has the higher upside. And it got me excited. It got me shaking in my boots. The unfortunate thing, and this is the reality of watching hockey, is the injuries. Injuries has set Joni Ikonen back like you guys wouldn't even imagine it. So, it's something that's unfortunate, but it's going to happen. I really hope he continues to develop. And maybe he's not going to be like a top six forward, but if he could be like maybe I'm just saying that because they're both Finnish, but like a Leskinen type player, or sorry, a Leskinen type player, that would be great. I get it; they play different positions, but Leskinen, he's not like a top six player, but he's a very solid third line player for me. If we can get that out of Ikonen, I'll be happy, considering all the injuries that he suffered, and it's not minor injuries. I'm talking injuries that set him out for seasons. Okay. Areem says, nice to see you there, buddy. He says, who would you want the Canadians to pick in the 18th to 13th range? Okay, I'll tell you who I want to pick. First of all, I'm going to go on this tremendous website. I forget what it's called. NHL 2020 mock draft. It's basically a website where they combine draft site. That's what it is. No, it's not draft site. Fuck. What is it called? Um, is it? Fuck. No. Okay. That's what it is. It's called My NHL Draft. MyNHLDraft.com. There you go. I believe that this list is updated. Um, I don't know, like pretty much weekly. I would say. Alexis Lafreniere still slated to go number one overall. Byfield number two. Stutzel number three. Drysdale number four. Raymond, Rossi, Lundell, and the Canadians, they expect them to go maybe eighth. Okay. Again, right now they're ahead of the Minnesota Wild. They're ahead of the Buffalo Sabres. They're ahead of the Blackhawks. I don't expect that to be the case for much longer because those teams I just mentioned had a lot of games in hands. If the Canadians were to draft number eight, okay, and say that all of these players were off the board, say the Lafreniere, the Byfields, the Stutzels, the Raymonds, all of these guys, my number one pick would be Holtz. And I'm not just saying it because of this website. One thing the Canadians are desperately lacking, except like a left-handed defenseman, they are desperately lacking a pure goal scorer. I know Cole Caulfield is going to come, but he's not a sure thing yet. Okay? Uh, Holtz, he is a pure goal scorer. He may have the best shot of the entire draft, which that is saying something considering the caliber of players they have in that draft. But also, the reason why I think it's important to get a guy like Holtz is that if you look at some of the guys on the board, Tim Stutzel, who is an incredible player, by the way, if he falls down to the Canadians somehow, they should draft him. Well, the downside to Tim Stutzel is look at his height and his weight. 5'11", 165 pounds. I mean, I'm sorry. I weighed 165 pounds when I was 12. 165 pounds, that's nothing. I take 165-pound shits. Okay? But moving down the list, Jamie Drysdale, the defenseman, 5'11", Raymond, 5'10", 165, Marco Rossi, 5'9", 179. This is a very talented draft. It's a very small draft. I haven't named one player yet who was 180 pounds, which that's not something that's big, 180 pounds. We finally get to Lundell, who is a 183, plays center. But if you were to ask my opinion, I think that Holtz is the better player because of that. The position he plays, first of all, I don't think that the Canadians are in dire needs of centerman anymore, but also his goal scoring knack. It's not so much the position, it's his goal scoring knack. And also, he's not a small guy. He's not a giant by any means, but 6 foot, 183 pounds. You're going to develop to be someone who's big enough that you can like defend yourself in the NHL. I get what you guys are thinking. The league is going towards smaller stature. It's more so speed, it's more so skill, and I'll agree with that. The problem is your team shouldn't be solely comprised of smallish players. For example, the Canadians have a lot of small skilled players. Gallagher, Domi, Mete, all of these guys are small. Caulfield later on. The Suzuki's on the smaller side. The problem is that when your entire team is small, you tend to get bullied in games. Okay? Johnny Gaudreau is an amazing player. Imagine if your whole team was a bunch of Johnny Gaudreaus. You would get clobbered every day. It's not fun. So, a guy like Holtz, for me, that's the perfect pick. My second pick that I would really like to see, say if tomorrow the Canadians were drafting number 8, I would really like to see Cole Perfetti. I get that's going against what I was saying about the height, but I think that this player, he has mad skill. He has mad skill, and similarly to Cole Caulfield, maybe not as big as an extent. A few years ago, they were saying this guy's the next best thing, and even in the beginning of this year, they had him going much higher than 10th overall. This guy has a lot of skill. If the Canadians get a chance to draft Cole Perfetti, I would do it. But apart from Byfield, to be honest, apart from Lafreniere and Byfield, it's wide open. Okay? I wouldn't be surprised to see Alexander Holt go 3rd overall, like I wouldn't be surprised to see him go 15th overall. You know, this range right here, where you see number 3 to number 10, it's going to be very, very fluid. You know, you're going to see a lot of flip-flopping around, so that's it. Ottawa's going to be drafting very high in this draft. I wouldn't be surprised if they take the 2 Swedes, be it Lucas Raymond and Alexander Holtz, because they must have a lot of chemistry together, both playing on super elite teams. So maybe they have some chemistry together. I don't know. But the Canadians, 2 players I'm really looking at, Alexander Holtz, Cole Perfetti, and say if somehow they got the 3rd overall pick, definitely go with Tim Stützle. I know he's not a big player, and I know that's kind of going to catch him up later, sooner rather than later in the NHL, but he is so fucking skilled. The problem with Tim Stützle, I feel, is that playing in Germany, he doesn't get as much press as Alexander Lafreniere, who, like Alex Lafreniere today, scored a 7-point game. It was a career-high game for him. I saw it everywhere on Twitter. I couldn't avoid it. He gets a lot of press. I don't know if scouts have as much exposure to Tim Stützle, but this guy's skill is off the chain. And by the way, I hate when people compare him to Draisaitl. Like, just because they're both German doesn't mean they're the same player. Stützle, maybe he doesn't have like the same sniper qualities as a Leon Draisaitl, who, with all due respect, he might be up for the Hart this year. But with that being said, he's much more fleet of foot than a guy like Draisaitl. So 2 different players, but still 2 very skilled players. If the Canadians drafted 3rd tomorrow, Tim Stützle. If they drafted 8th, Alexander Holtz. So on and so forth. You guys want to see what other mock drafts say? Let's go on draftsite.com. It's a very good website. Lafreniere 1st. Byfield 2nd. Stützle, Perfetti. Goes exactly to what I was saying. One website has Perfetti number 10. The other one has him number 4. You know, everyone's pre-draft ranking is going to be busted after the draft. Okay? Whoever gets it right, they have a crystal ball somewhere. Going forward, though, Perfetti, Drysdale, who, by the way, Canadians, the only reason why I'm saying they shouldn't draft Drysdale is, well, actually, I take that back. Because I'm being hypocritical here, I say never to draft based on position. Drysdale's a right-handed defenseman, which is the only little But if they're really in need for defensemen, and if you really think that the Shea Weber injury is going to be long-term, go after Drysdale. He is by far the best defenseman of the draft. And he was able to play on Team Canada as an underager. And he did very impressively. So I love Jamie Drysdale. Let's see who they gave the Canadians. Oh, they say the Canadians are going to draft 13th. Dawson Mercer. Oh, man. Chicago gets Lucas Raymond at the 8th position. Maybe not the best mock draft I've ever seen in my life. But who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be hard to predict this year. I'm going to tell you what. All right, let me read a few questions here. Areem says, I personally want Rossi if he's there at 8th. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know much about Rossi. I'm not going to lie. So I'm not going to pretend here like I know him. I just want them to pick the best player. Don't pick based on position. That's the worst thing. You can pick based on need, if you need a goal scorer. Don't pick based on position. Alvin says, and don't forget Laval has players going up and down. Players like Evans, Paling, Weiss, Leskinen. It messes with their chemistry. That's true. I'll give you credit there. It messes a lot with their chemistry. I gotta give you credit there. I gotta say though, talking about Bouchard, being that he's a defenseman, I thought that he'd be able to develop the defenseman better that he's been doing this year. And I'm making reference to Josh Brook. He is not having a great year with the Laval Rocket. And I thought that was something that was really surprising because, like I said, Bouchard being an ex-defenseman in the NHL, I thought that he'd be able to develop him properly and sort of mold him into a better player, but he's been very disappointing. He's not even close to bust territory, but he's sort of getting there. All right? He's not close, but he's making steps towards it. Alvin says, I wouldn't mind Montreal drafting Drysdale, but we have too many right-handed defensemen. Brooke, Fleury, Jolson, maybe. That's true. And my first instinct would be to agree with you while I fix my lamp. This is the only problem that I'll tell you. Areem. Or what was it, Areem? No, Alvin. They have a lot of right-handed defensemen now. When they draft Drysdale, if they're smart, if they've learned their lesson with Pakayami, they know it's not good to play a guy in the NHL when he's 18, let alone a defenseman. So he's going to get drafted, spend an extra maybe 1 or 2 years. So that's almost 3 years from now. 3 years from now, is it guaranteed that Brooke, Fleury, and Jolson are going to be on the team? No. So you're going to be kicking yourself in the ass for having not taken Jamie Drysdale. That's why it's absolutely absurd to be drafting according to position. I mean, if they were ready to be inserted into the lineup tomorrow, then I guess there is some merit to that mentality. But the fact of the matter is, these players, before they reach their prime, before they make it to the NHL, we're looking at a good 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years. Are you still going to have the same positional needs back then as you do now? I don't think so. What happened to Jolson, by the way? He was doing pretty solid in the NHL after those pucks in the face. I haven't heard of him. Oh, boy. Oh, man, Gustav. Sorry to skip your question, Areem, but Gustav with some breaking news. Man, Gustav Penal-Masson coming in the clutch. He says Blake Coleman was traded for a first-rounder and Nolan Foote. Oh, my God. Let me bring the details up. So I'm assuming it was to the Lightning? Trade. Here we go. Oh, no, these are rumors. Report. New Jersey Devils trade Blake Coleman, but we aren't sure. Ah, crap. I'm trying to get an official word here. Oh, no, it's what is it? Here we go. Blake Coleman to the Tampa Bay Lightning is getting done. And according to Gustav, listen, guys, if Blake Coleman could yield a first rounder and Nolan Foote, imagine what a guy like Thomas Tatar can give. I mean, Blake Coleman, with all due respect for him, I know he's the type of player you would want on your team in a playoff run. But let's just take a look at his stats, just out of curiosity here. Blake Coleman, DB. We're going to take a look at his stats, and we're going to see what an A prospect, Nolan Foote, he's not just an okay prospect. He's an A prospect. Okay? That plus a first-round pick, which I get it, it's not going to be the highest of picks. Who knows, if Tampa Bay gets swept again, it might be. But Blake Coleman, he has 57 games played, 21 goals, 31 points. Okay, not a horrible season. Not the best of seasons either. But for a guy like Nolan Foote, again, I can't totally blame Tampa Bay because they want to make it. They think that Blake Coleman can push them over the edge. So in that case, they're fully willing to give up a guy like Coleman. But like Areem is saying, Mark Bergevin has to trade Tatar now. Like, Blake Coleman has 30 points in 50-something games. Tatar has 50-something points in 50-something games. Let me pull out the exact amount. 53 points in 61 games. 21 goals. Man, oh man. I mean, you gotta think. If it's a type of trade like that, you gotta think they're gonna go for it. Pinot Masson says Devils also got a second rounder and a player for Andy Green. Yeah, like Andy Green. No offense to Andy Green. He's a great leader. He wasn't named the captain for nothing. But a second round player and Quenneville? Wow. Alvin was here, says, I agree with you, Areem. MB, Mark Bergevin, could get so much for Tatar right now. Like 2 first rounders. Something at the very least. He can get 2 first rounders. But wait, whose first rounders is that? Tampa Bay's or Vancouver's? I don't know. I don't have much details on the trade because it just broke. I mean, even Pierre LeBrun, he hasn't mentioned the names yet. So I'd be interested to hear how you got it, Gustav. But I don't know much details about the trade, unfortunately. Oh, rumors have it it's Vancouver's first round pick. But I don't know about that. I'm confused because I thought Vancouver's first round pick, I thought that was a conditional pick. So how can you trade a conditional pick? I don't know. I don't know if it's ever been done. Anyway. Let me see if I missed any questions. Someone was asking. Oh yeah, Areem, you're asking about Juleson. You know what? He was looking to be a promising defenseman. I'm not gonna lie. The injuries really kicked him in the ass. It really did. And I don't know if he can make a comeback from it, but it's looking bleak at this point. And Gustav, love your name by the way, says, I was on RDS. It didn't say whose pick it is, but there you go. Let me go on RDS. Give you guys the official report. I'm trying to be official here, trying to be a professional. Oh boy. If this is any indication, the Devils are selling like crazy. Which is what should happen. Guys, if you're not going to make the playoffs, sell the fucking house. Burn it all down. Do what the Devils are doing. The Devils, it's bad right now, but they're going to benefit greatly from all these moves they're doing. Areem says Tatar equals a first, second, and prospect. I would say more. I would say more than that because you basically got that for Jason Zucker. A first-round pick, a prospect, and you can interchange Galchenyuk with a second-round pick. Personally, I prefer a second-round pick at this point. But Tatar is a better player than Zucker. You can get way more than just that. I'm dying to know your thoughts, but hey, guys, I've been on for about an hour. I'm going to have to call the quits here. I do have to go to bed, brush my teeth, shave my balls, all of those fun stuffs because I do got to go to work tomorrow. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this podcast. Let me know what you think Mark Bergevin should do in the upcoming trade deadline. I might make a solo video about it, but in the meantime, make sure to follow me at the Sinbin 1996. And if you guys want to join in the chat, make sure to follow the link in the description and check out Discord. I know you guys might not know a lot about this app in terms of what it is, but basically you can go on it, join the Hockey Talk channel, and we can just talk hockey. Like, look, these are GB's photos of stadium experience. You know, here's a video I posted about Ed Belfour's drunken arrest. I mean, oh my god, I don't know what's going on with him, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video. On behalf of Shazam, Alvin was here, Areem, Gustav, Leaky Bum, all you guys. I'm sure Joe's going to listen to this later on. I appreciate you guys showing up. It really means a lot to me. Your questions, magnifique, A+ questions. I loved answering them. I hope you guys appreciated the answer. But in the meantime, my name is Matt from the Sin Bin. Keep your stick